Zion, it would be great if you can just live.
We are.
Okay, so we are live on YouTube.
Yep.
Right. Nice. So let me just start with the introductions on these meetups. So I have shared my screen for the slides. So yeah, welcome everyone. So we are, I think it's 7th or 8th session, or more than that.
10th,
So welcome.
10th.
Yeah. So welcome for our 10th virtual meetup sessions, locked in together for better. So these are virtual meetup sessions are organized by the volunteers of ILUG Delhi and Delhi Hardware Hackers Club. So it's a 10th session, as I already said. So we have planned a lot of sessions on this Jitsi and YouTube, and those who have missed any of the meetups and want to attend any of the sessions that they have missed, we have all the sessions available on our YouTube channel. So just please go on YouTube, subscribe to us, and find all the sessions you have missed. Also subscribe to our calendar to stay updated on our future meetups.
Philo,
Yeah,
we can't see your screen.
I have shared my screen. So just click on my.
Look, it's visible actually.
Okay.
Maybe you have some problem tested.
So just click on the Philo's, chat.
I also have the same problem. I am clicking on it, but I can't see anything.
Let me reshare it then.
Maybe if Amar could stop his screen share and you could just have one screen share, that would work.
Yeah, can you please just stop screen sharing for now? Or if any of you is joining via mobile, so that might be one of the issue. So let's continue. So so we have planned, so please subscribe to our calendar. Before I continue, can you just see my screen now?
Now it's not visible anywhere.
No one can see my screen?
Nope.
Okay, that's all.
Earlier it was visible.
Anyways, Philo, did you have anything on the screen to share? Actually,
I have the screen sharing on.
no. If you don't have actually anything to share, then perhaps it's just
Fine.
fine.
Continue without it. It's fine.
Okay. So those who can see my screen, that's great. And if you cannot, I have shared all the relevant links in the chat. So you can just go through the chat and find the relevant links for the calendar, YouTube channel, and the upcoming meetups. So we have all our sessions on Jitsi. So it's a big shout out, big thanks to the Jitsi platform that they made such a great platform for us to have a session on. And we also have a virtual meetup, virtual quiz every Friday and a community check-in along with. So we have an amazing quiz, questions compiled by the volunteers, and the quiz winner gets a awesome a beautiful plant whenever we get to meet in person, of course. And all the sessions are recorded on YouTube and they are live streamed as well. So in case if anyone do not want to share their camera footage, you feel free to switch off your camera, because these sessions will be recorded and will be live streamed on YouTube. Also join us our Telegram groups, links available on my screen if you can see, or on the websites, and links are also available in the chats. Follow us on Twitter. We have a meetup page for ILUG Delhi as well that is updated with the sessions we have in nearby future. And since ILUG Delhi and Delhi Hackers Club is a volunteer driven community, we are always looking for someone to help us in the help. We are always looking for sponsors, for food, for helping us organizing the meetup, hosting the meetup. So if you want to help us or help the community thrive, please reach out to us on our Telegram, Twitter, or anywhere you feel you want to connect to us. These sessions are also, we have a code of conduct. In these sessions will have the code of conduct applicable on it. So the link to the code of conduct is available on the chat. But if you haven't read, it's just simple: be nice to everyone and respect everyone. And to make the most out of these sessions, first of all, there are a few points. So make your nickname just something more recognizable. Then fellow Jitsier, follow COC, mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Use raise hand on the bottom left corner when you want to speak and do not want to interrupt. Put your question for speakers in the chat window with Q colon in front so that we can uh, differentiate between the questions and the statements. You can also directly ask the questions at the end of the sessions. And if you like to propose a session, do that by creating an issue on our GitHub page. Links will be shared at the end of the session for that. And yeah, that's it. So let me just start with the introduction of our speaker today. So Amar Singh has an online alias NLY. He is a contributor to GNU Guix, and he used Guix as a daily driver GNU Linux distro, and minded GNU/Linux distro. And he is also a maintainer of Emacs Short Password Manager and Guile Torrent Library. And he's also a contributor to Emacs and Nomad. Links available in the chat for the project. So we do check out. So yeah, that
Thanks,
should be
Philo.
all. So I think handing over to you, Amar.
Thank you, Philo. My session is about the process, bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is a relative term. It depends on what you're trying um, to bootstrap. For example, if you're trying to bootstrap, say, your computer, you need a kernel, you need a compiler, and then you're off to the races. You can start writing your own programs, that is. And if you want to bootstrap a civilization, um, this talk is about the questions that I think would help us get there, so that we can bootstrap a civilization. So let's get started. I would like you to imagine that you're visiting some century in the past, and you get to meet some ruler such as King Akbar. And since you're the time traveler from future, you ask the king. You tell the king that you have come from the future and you know so many things about the future, like cars, airplanes, electricity, light bulbs, and so on. And the king is amazed by you, and he asks you, "What can you do for me in this world?" And so I'd just like you to think about that question. What could you do if you could travel back to a past time? So the answer is not that you can build a great website, because it would not be any use in that time without the supporting infrastructure of the internet. Similarly, credit cards and other things like that. Even cars wouldn't work because you'd need petroleum for them to work. So you see that to start up something, uh, you need to have some resources to actually uh, do something with that. A second scenario: imagine that you're stranded on a very nice island that has no dangers to human species, and there are fruits, wildlife, and fishes to sustain you. Would you be able to live mod the quote unquote modern life as we have come to expect in our cities? um, this is a picture of Bear Grylls. As you all know, your only option is to get out of that paradise island, because it's not possible to build your computers or even have electricity or running water. Similarly, let's consider the case that you're the first astronaut to Mars. Um, you would have serious limitation on how many things you can take with you, and what technologies would you take with yourself?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have any slides, or it's just a bootstrapping a civilization stream that we are supposed to see right now?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I think I might have to go back.
Yeah, better.
So, if you're visiting the past, say you visit a king in some earlier century, and you show him the credit card, and just for lols, I have this image. You could buy anything with a credit card, given you have a supermarket. Second slide, you're stranded on a paradise island. You have wildlife, fruits, everything, but still you live like a tribe. You live a tribal life because there is no technology. Third, you're on a different planet, and there is nothing basically, not even food or shelter. So, the question is, how do you, um, what is the minimum essential technology that you take with yourself?
Something that can help me live over there, like sustain a life, basically. Something like oxygen, food, something to build a shelter.
He's talking about technology, I guess.
Right. That's yes. That your answer is right. First, we have food, shelter, water, energy, and then we can think about computers and networking.
Yeah.
Um, let's take a look at an example which is a bit closer to home. You're living in an undeveloped or underdeveloped place. You can imagine maybe your hometown, your village, some place where there's not any fast internet connectivity. Uh, Maybe you have power cuts every day. Maybe you don't get water every day. Uh, maybe you get maybe you have to fetch water from the wells. Um, so the solution is maybe to um, move out of the village, but the I'd like to argue that maybe we can do something about it. Um, so yeah, I have this image. I think everyone has seen something like this. Um, there are no roads, no permanent houses, and the sewage system is kind of dirty. So, um, bootstrapping, again, I'll just summarize the definition, is the process of um, getting the essential setup so that you can start doing something. And if you're bootstrapping a computer, you need a compiler, a kernel, some basic things, and maybe a text editor, maybe a shell. And if you want to, now in this presentation, I'm asking the question, how can we bootstrap a civilization? I'm talking about uh, those examples, like a village, maybe even Mars or Moon. And how do we get to a working civilization over there? And I'd like to avoid the easier solution of moving to a city or not going to Mars or Moon in the first place, because I think that would be boring.
I would say seeds and knowledge of farming will do as one of the step in the bootstrap, because whenever if I want to settle somewhere alien, so I must have the knowledge of farming and the seeds with me. So to start everything, I want to start my settlement over there. And I
Right,
think
right.
that's one thing. Water irrigation channels. I don't know.
That's
Philomath,
right.
I have a argument over there. Um, you are saying like you should have a knowledge of farming and should have some seeds, but how do you know like soil would be sustainable for that or not?
Right. Um, so at the end, I'm actually going to mention a kind of a solution that I think, quote unquote, solution. Um, it's not gonna be surprise. Capitalism works, and the solution is actually compatible with capitalism. And the solution is open source technology. Um, I'm not saying that you need to personally learn how to grow plants and grow wheat. I'm saying that if we can, I'd like to use the analogy that somebody can write a text editor that I don't know how to write, but I can still use it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how to build a car, but I can still drive it. Similarly, I don't think you have to learn how to farm. You just uh, maybe we can build some technology um, that can be um, like grow food automatically. You just drop in a seed, and there you go, and you just let it run. We're not there yet, but that would be the kind of solution uh, that I'm hoping for. So I would imagine that there is some agriculture expert who is writing these designs and making them online using Git or some other technology, maybe torrent, peer-to-peer sharing, distributed networks, what have you. And the people in other parts of the world can reproduce that technology with the means that they have. Um, for example, like India is trying to build their own uh, processors, the RISC-V processor, Shakti processor, C class. So, but the question is, how are we gonna build those factories to build those processors? Because only Intel and Foxconn can build the cutting edge processors. And um, so far, this problem has been avoided because um, we can just buy it from elsewhere. Similarly, no single person knows how to make an object simple as common pencil, but still we can all use it. Um, the things that the first things that we have to worry about will be food. Someone will have to come up with a great technological solution for food, for growing food. Um, Something like maybe hydroponics, because hydroponics can avoid the situation of having to need having the need to have soil. and you can grow plants directly in something such as water. Um, and there's also a second option of having in vitro meat, which is meat grown uh, that's grown in labs from cells. The second problem we have is water, and again, there's no shortage of interesting work that's gone into these fields. Shelter. Uh, Buckminster Fuller has been um, was the first to build things such as these uh, geodesic domes. He called them geodesic domes. You can see one in my profile picture. I'll show you one right here. So yeah, this is me, and I'm wearing this is a V1 buckyball or geodesic dome. The higher the V number, the rounder it gets, and you can build these out of simpler materials. I've used tape and wooden sticks, and you can use these to build shelter, and you can have the designs of these uh, buildings online in some Git repository, and people can just build your design that you have worked out. Energy. I think I have some calculation over here. Sorry if I'm going kind of off the track over here.
No, actually, it's a good talk.
So I
Please
did
keep
some,
going.
even though everyone is kind of on board with solar power is actually quite inefficient compared to some other sources of power. And I don't think that we always like to live on the surface of the earth. We can at least go 8 miles deep under the surface of the earth, and there's no sunlight there, and it's habitable. And it would be a waste to not go there. Let's see if I have something here. So we were too quick to give up on nuclear power. I did some calculation that the energy contained in 1 kilo of uranium is enough to power uh, produces some 18 terajoules of energy. In simpler words, that is enough energy for your household for centuries to come, essentially. 1 kilo of uranium, and it would have to be just 3% enriched, and that's it. Yeah. So the bomb dropped on Nagasaki had 88 terajoules of energy. Converted to everyday terms, my household has 2 kilowatt hours of energy cap, and usually homes in Chandigarh have 10 kilowatt hours, and such a home could be powered for 279.04 years with that with the amount of uranium with the amount of energy released in the Fat Man bomb. So I think solar power is great, but there are still nuclear power is probably the best option. Then we come to the computing and networking. So there's already some progress in the open computing field with RISC-V instruction set architecture. An instruction set architecture is kind of like a language, standard language. Every processor, Intel, ARM, they speak different languages. These are not software languages. These are actually languages embedded in the hardware. Instructions such as push and these instructions actually work on the stack, and I don't actually remember these. Let's see if I can pull up some assembly. Slash base.asm. Instructions like mov, int, jmp, which is a jump, times. This is a continuous loop. I'm moving something to the AH register in here and moving this character into the AL register. This is an interrupt code for the BIOS. Jump to the instruction number this. Current line minus 8 bytes. I think that's over here. And then keep displaying that letter. And this is just padding zeros until 510 bytes. You can imagine that RISC-V has different instructions instead of move. You can say move C or something else. Right. But these are written in hardware, not in software. So these are very hard to change. And that is why Windows didn't run for quite a long time on Android devices, ARM devices. There's actually a different instruction set architecture, which is also free and open source. It's called Open Power by IBM. It's actually already available for purchase. It's quite expensive, but it's quite performant as well. And GNU-net is doing some great work in networking. With that, these are my ideas. There's also a lot of money to be made in bootstrapping any of these technologies, because we are producing a lot of waste, and it goes. People can actually pay you to take your waste away if you could find a way to use it. There's a lot of inefficiency in production. So a simple thing such as a pencil is produced maybe in some other country and then shipped to India. The lead or the graphite in the pencil is produced elsewhere, then shipped to the factory that produces the actual pencil, and so on. Similarly with hardware, your computer is built somewhere in China, then shipped to America, then marketed, branded, and shipped to your country, which is a lot of inefficiency actually. And there's a great talk, The Miracle of Pencil. I'll just paste this. Philo, can you open the session for open discussion. I'd like to take
Yeah.
questions.
So if the talk is over, uh, so there's one question in the chat by Rajudev. You can I can read the question. Open power is a power PC processor architecture question mark.
Yes, yes, it's a PowerPC processor architecture which was open sourced.
Right. So that was a very great talk. Actually, I have been reading *Sapiens* these days, and the talk actually made sense to me because I was reading how agricultural revolution took part in the history and made us today who we are. So that was a really
Um,
great talk.
right. So the second question from YouTube. Uh, the problem with capitalism is that only governments have the monopoly on printing money, which is kind of going away now with cryptocurrencies. Um, I mean that if you had to start your own civilization, the most important things after food, water, and electricity would be definitely money, so that you can work with other people. And um, it's not possible to use money from some other country, so you have to make your own money, and there are options now.
And with that, I have an argument. So money is just a mutually agreed piece of paper that we agree that it holds a value of this. So anyone can print as much money as they want as long as other person agrees to find it as much valuable as the person who printed it.
Right, right.
That's the thought.
I agree with you. I didn't get why we disagree.
So that was actually a really great talk and a very different kind of talk. If you so you made the slides in the org mode, right?
Yeah. This is all org mode, Emacs org.
So if you can just can you after this session can you just share these links to the slide or upload the slide somewhere so that we can anyone can just check the slides out on the GitHub issue. If you
Yes.
can, it would be great.
Yes. Yes, I can. I'll do
Cool.
it. Do you have your Emacs configuration somewhere on Git? Um, I don't. It's not kind of great. If you still, I don't. I'm using just stock Emacs, and I have something. I have some things like I update my DNS in. I'll just show you my Emacs configuration since this is interesting. So I'm using these things, uh, and the ellipsis, the dot 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 means that there is more stuff under there, which is not showing, right? So I'm using these packages, require better defaults dash s. I'm setting some fonts over here, right? I'm using Emacs pin entry, like the password manager, right? And setting some variables for email usage, some configuration for the password manager. I've defined a function called home, um, some hooks, and I'm using Geyser. I'll post this online probably. The interesting part is over here, DNS update. This is the main thing that I do with Emacs. Um, I'm updating my website with this, and I'm trying to hide this. Maybe not a great idea. So everything startup using Emacs. Probably share this by coming
We
up with
have some comment from YouTube
that
by
better.
Animesh.
Should I read it? Or you can.
I can. So Animesh
Animesh
posts
Ghosh
that.
by coming up with solutions that betters others' lives. Animesh Ghosh will civilization progress. Yeah, capitalism I think means when people can create and benefit from their creations. Um, he agrees with me that the government has monopoly over printing money. Insan Manav would like to speak. Can I allow someone to speak?
Yeah, in Sanimano, you can speak, just acknowledge that.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, so I really don't agree with your point that solar power is inefficient and expensive and instead should be replaced with nuclear power.
All right.
Like, I believe that there are a shit ton of problems associated when we try and use nuclear power, and it has actually shown its real face before. Like, what I believe is that until we figure out on how to get that much uranium to actually power an entire country, or maybe on how to actually dump all that radioactive waste, we should refrain from using nuclear power. Like, I agree solar power is expensive, but as far as I have read and understood, it's not really that
I
great
can
of
actually tell you how
a
much more
maintenance.
expensive it is. Um, Solar power is 10 times worse than gasoline. Um, a 350, a 2 meter panel produces 350 watts, I think. And gasoline produces a lot more energy than that per gallon. I think that both are solutions. The only problem with solar power is that it's hard to bootstrap without the whole process. Some solar panel, I don't even know how a solar panel gets built, but I'm sure that it's taking place um, in a very complicated uh, chain. If you can imagine that I pay you 5 rupees for a pencil, and then you're the retailer or the shop, the general store, and then you pay that rupees, those uh, a certain amount of that 5 rupees to the manufacturer, Natraj or something, and then they pay their suppliers, the wood supplier, the lead supplier, and the eraser supplier, if it's that kind of pencil which has an eraser on the end. And then the wood supplier pays a tractor supplier for the tractor he's using. He pays for he pays a fraction to the petroleum company for the gasoline he might be using. He pays the electric companies, and so on. And there's a huge network of these kind of services that goes into building a single solar panel. Um, but on the other hand, you have
Yeah,
some simple technologies um, that can be built with a smaller network, even by a single person.
but what we're trying to go towards as a civilization is more efficiency, right? Like, I can always tell you that I can make I don't know, those earlier forms of whatever cow dung cakes were used by villagers and everyone. So I can always tell you I can make them at home, right? But we're still trying to move towards more efficient ideas and more efficient technologies.
Right. That's I
I
appreciate
also
your
have a
comment.
point before you say anything. We are discussing about nuclear power plants, sorry, nuclear energy versus solar energy. This thought came to my mind about Chernobyl event. So it was like nuclear energy was almost like about to end the human civilization at that moment. So like, and if we see at solar energy, it's very safe, not that efficient, okay, as you said, but see, it's very safe, okay, it's very clean if we compare it with nuclear energy. And also it's easier to set up if I go to another planet or another place instead of nuclear energy.
Right. If you take all the solar panels you'll ever use in your life with you, it's like saying carry all the food you'll ever need in your life with you. Um, you cannot produce solar panels over there, uh, right, on the other planet. But if
Yeah,
you can,
but
but
also
if
we
you can
cannot
extract
produce
methane,
nuclear stuff now. We have to mine it or like produce, like get it from somewhere.
right? Um, that's a tricky question. I don't know the answers, man. Uh,
I have something to share. So I have a mixed thoughts about both of these. So solar energy is one of the most efficient ways, but we do not know how to harness that energy in one of the efficient ways. And on the other hand, we can harness the nuclear energy in kind of efficient way, but it's not safe, what to say. So it's kind of trade-off for both, in my opinion. So I just have mixed thoughts for both of them. So it's really, it's not
um,
really this or
the
that kind of.
Voyager spacecrafts actually used nuclear energy because they traveled so far from the sun.
Sorry.
The Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecrafts that went to Saturn and Uranus and Pluto
Mhm.
actually used nuclear power because they went so far from the sun.
Right. Okay.
So it's possible. We can actually do it in a small package, nuclear energy, that is.
And also, if Voyager 1 will not have any human uh, passenger on it, so it's kind of more safe and efficient. So I think it's a kind of trade-off between both of them.
Right.
So that's just my point. And someone also wanted to speak. So
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it also depends on the application of the energy. As you said that if you're going to space, definitely you need far more energy, and that's why you will go for something like atomic based energy or nuclear based energy. And when you're on Earth, I will root for the obviously a sustainable energy, as everyone else was saying, solar panel or something. And rather than making this talk about this versus that, because it always depends on a perspective and it always depends on the application, uh, I would like to know more about like what this talk is about.
This talk is about the kinds of technology which are easier to bootstrap. Um, it's very hard to build a computer processor, but it's easy to build a hammer because the number of people uh, necessary in a loop to build a hammer is quite less compared to something like a processor.
What do you
Um,
mean by when you say a processor?
a general computer, a Turing machine compatible computer.
And why will you compare like making a processor and a hammer? Like what are you, where we are heading?
Um, I'm saying that mechanical things can be made by a single person. Um, that
Okay.
is that is in a way more bootstrappable because
Hmm.
uh, to build a silicon chip, you first need to have, I mean, To build a silicon
Got
chip,
it.
you need to have computers because it's designed on computers, right? To build a computer, you need to have a computer first because it's designed in Verilog,
Okay.
and um, and the Verilog program is then compiled to something, and then that machine reads it and produces the chip, right? Um, there are some compilers out there that are written in the language that they compile to, that they compile. For example, the Rust compiler is written in Rust. So say you have the source of the Rust compiler. How do you compile it?
But initially, I don't think so. It was initially written in Rust, right?
Right, right.
Initially, it was written in
Initially, it was
something
written in
else.
C. Initially, it was written in C because there was nothing to compile Rust. Then they compiled the first binary, and then they can start writing things in Rust.
Okay.
And since then, Rust now depends on a very long chain to build the latest Rust compiler. Because first you need to compile the mrust C, which is written in C, minimal Rust implementation. Then you compile the next Rust compiler 1.19, and then so on until you get to 1.31.
What is this project like? The miracle of pencil? Because I actually came to this talk because I felt that this is going to be very interesting, and so I'm trying to take you to where you are heading. Like, what is this talk about?
This talk is about bootstrappable technology. It's not about efficient technology, actually. Um, Let me go back to a different slide.
Yeah, it would be better if you can just conclude the talk, conclude the whole session in a kind of summary, so that people will just get the answers in the end.
Animesh, I'll take your questions in a moment. First, I'd like to summarize it for Raman Telan. Uh, Thanks for your comments, Insan Manav and Animesh and Harsh. So, Raman Telan, uh, if you can imagine that you travel back to the 16th century, um, even if you bring a computer with you to that century, you cannot do very much with it because you need power, electricity, you need to have network and things like that. Similarly, um, to build some technologies, you would already need to have something in place. Um, for example, let's say you want to build a house using wood and screws, and you're using electric powered drill. Then you need to have electricity. That means you need to have an electricity socket, um, and that means you need to have already built the thing, um, kind of like the Rust compiler. You already need to have a house where there is an electric socket where you can plug in the drill and then start building your house. Um, Bootstrapping is the process of getting yourselves in the computer world. It's the process of setting up the minimum uh, minimum requirements so that you can start programming the computer. You need a kernel, you need a compiler, and you need maybe a text editor, etc. And in the case of bootstrapping, let's say you want to bootstrap a house, you need water, you need to have walls, you need to have electricity, and you need to have some sewage. I hope that clarifies it for you. um, I'll try to take some other questions until we have time.
Okay, so I think we do not have any more questions. So thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you Amar for presenting such a great talk. So I think Zion, you can just stop the feed, stop the live stream if you can, and we will linger over here for just informal discussion about anything bootstrapping civilization related or anything we want to discuss, and that's I think that's a formal closure to the session tonight.